The title of this podcast is The Branding Mirage.
Brands are trying to seduce you with these visions of higher achievement, that you're part of some exclusive club.
Danielle Garno, a powerhouse attorney whose career has been devoted to protecting some of the world's most iconic brands. With decades of experience, Danielle has advised global designers, entertainment giants, and high-profile companies on how to safeguard what matters most, their brand identity.
Private equity as the group, controlling brands, controlling decisions going on. Why is that a problem?
Because it's all about money. It's all about profit.
Get ready for an eye-opening conversation on brand psychology, branded condos in Miami, the laws around how they operate, and truth behind branding. This is Better Decisions.
Welcome back to the Better Decisions podcast. I'm David Siddons, and I'm here today with Danielle Garno. Today, we're actually going to talk about brands. The title of this podcast is The Branding Mirage, or as you like to actually put it, brand fuckery, which actually I like much better. And I think we'll try and use that if YouTube will allow. But yeah, today we're actually going to get into the discussion of brands. And the guest that I have with me today is someone who has actually worked in the legal field of branding. You're nationally recognized with fashion, entertainment, sports attorney. You got 2 decades in big law.
Yeah.
Or is it more?
Just makes me sound really old.
Yeah, no, a lot of experience. Listen, a lot of experience in big law. But you really are very experienced. You've been with Greenberg Traurig. You are now aligned as a legal strategy with brand identity and market pace.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but you really are an expert on branding.
Yes.
In all aspects of it.
I consider myself a branding lawyer.
You are a branding lawyer, and I think, therefore, you kind of know all the ugly truth that goes on in branding. And not saying that I have a hate for all branding, but I think there's some things that need to be revealed, and I hope this will be helpful. So as we sit here in our office in Miami, and to be clear, I am a real estate broker. My particular field of expertise is real estate in South Florida. It's not surprising to many that Miami is one of 2 big cities in the US that has major branded condos. Now, I don't want to make this whole podcast about just branded condos. I want to make it about branding as a whole. But when we talk about branding, I'm not just talking about the hotelier brands of the Ritz-Carlton or the Four Seasons or the St. Regis. I'm talking about other brands, fashion brands and car brands that we now have. Just rattle off some of the following buildings that we have. Armani, Bentley, Porsche, Dolce & Gabbana, Fendi, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Baccarat, Pagani, Missoni Bayer. The list just keeps going on. So I want to explore today what makes these work, what makes them work or not work, and how we as human beings weigh up these decisions around these brands. Why are they so alluring? And most importantly, what do we need to be able to understand in our own psychology that will help us navigate these brands to know what's good and what's bad, and not let our emotions completely get hijacked with the seduction of branding?
Seduction of branding, that's a really good way to put it, because that's exactly what it is. The brands are trying to seduce you with, these visions of, higher achievement, that you're part of some exclusive club, that it connotes wealth and, extravagance, and everybody wants to be a part of that, right? Because if you're carrying, a luxury bag, that means that you've just spent, at this point, at least $3,500 on a bag. They're really good at signifying that there's some quality behind it. And I'm not saying that there's not for a lot of, luxury bags, but I think that we've seen recently, particularly in Europe, where they're falling down. We've seen a couple of brands get raided by European or the Italian authorities, where they're using slave labor to make these bags in Italy, where they've actually picked up Chinese markets, Chinese labor, Chinese factories, and put them in.
Yeah, you're talking about the article that came out in The Guardian and many other presses.
Yes.
It was Loro Piano who got caught. They got raided by the Italian police. And, this is a brand that is, I guess, you're talking, a cashmere top for $3,000. Yes. I think that was size
minimum.
Minimum $3,000 to only be found that it was actually being built or made by individuals that were on $4 an hour, €4 an hour, should I say? Sorry, I don't want to correct it. Dollars to euros makes a big difference. €4 an hour, and then on top of that, because that wasn't cheap enough, they were also subbing out some of the contracts to make these garments. And I think in the end it was costing them, at the most $100 for the actual garment, but they were, the markup was up to $3,000, which begs the question, the brand markup. Because the brand markup is the variable between what the product really is and the name on the side of the product, whether it's a bag, whether it's a car, whether it's a building, whatever it is, and whether or not you get that on the back end.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the question. I think that we also, as a society, suffer from FOMO, and so that we just think that because it's expensive and because our friends are carrying it or because our friends are wearing it, that it somehow is a quality product, which might not actually be the case. But you can also determine how you define quality.
With that story, because we kind of dived into the deep end on that, but I wanted to take a little step back to start with and understand, like, with you and your business and what you've been doing, what have you been doing for the last 20 years around brands? Like, what was your responsibility and what were you directly involved with, so that the audience can get a perspective of your angle?
Sure. So I first started in this whole space as a baby lawyer, doing a lot of anti-counterfeiting raids and intellectual property work. So it's, Canal Street, it's Santee Alley in LA, where you see all of these shops having, fake and counterfeit luxury goods. And so what I would do with my colleagues was we would go into the court and go and get a civil seizure order, which allowed us to go with law enforcement and raid these specific, units, buildings, shops, take the counterfeit goods, freeze their bank accounts. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever because, one, I don't have to wear a suit. Two, I'm going in with law enforcement and this is really cool. And three, really, when you're talking about counterfeit goods, it really goes back to human trafficking. It goes to, funding terrorism. It's really just bad all around. So it really was at that point, intellectual property protection and protecting the brand. So that was my first intro into it.
And then after that, what direction did it take?
It's gone in a bunch of different directions, but a lot of what I do now is a hybrid of protecting the brand, which is, trademark, copyright, litigation, enforcement, that kind of stuff. And then on the transactional side is what you're seeing now is licensing those brands to either, expand the brand, get a globally recognized brand, or using different sort of avenues for marketing.
The licensing the brand conversation is an interesting one because as brands start to expand and brands seems to, and again, part of the conversation that I've noticed is that brands seem to be getting bigger, and they seem to be like monsters just eating smaller monsters, and then so they grow and grow and grow, and so now you've got these arms. And I think of, like, within the car industry, Volkswagen back in the early 2000s bought Bentley, and then if you actually look at the lineup and the factories, it's Volkswagen owns Bentley, owns Lamborghini, owns Audi. All these brands are owned under one umbrella, and then the question is, when they get down to the authority of, like, how do we protect our brand? Are they protecting the brand or are they protecting the money? And then at that point, where does the allegiances and the alliances lie? I mean, do you say, okay, well, of course they're doing the right thing because they're trying to protect the brand, but what are they exactly trying to protect?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think, in the car spaces, but they're also doing that in the fashion space too. So you've got like two major players in the fashion space, which is LVMH and you've got Kering.
Yep.
And they, under each umbrella, they own pretty much, I think, 90% of the market in the luxury space, and then they're moving into hotels and yachting and all of that. So it's becoming more of a luxury. So it's you kind of see, it's interesting because in that space, it's almost like they're on rotation as to like who's going to be the hot brand that year, and where are those resources allocated. I don't have any visibility into that, but it is interesting to watch to see, where the creative directors are going, where are those designers going, because they all rotate, and then who's going to be like the front runner out of that group. So I just think that's sort of,
so they're balancing the plays as they go through.
Yeah.
And how does licensing work? Like, for those who don't know, what do these licensing agreements kind of look like?
So the licensing agreement looks like essentially I'm going to give you my, in the sports space, name, image, and likeness, in the branding space, your logo, your trademark. I'm going to give this exclusively to you. And you can carve out different categories. So you could say for you could get a license in for, the condo space, and you'll get it for X amount of years. I know you, David, as the expert in the condo space, and I know that you can run this, because we don't do that. We're a brand. We make clothes or cars. We don't do that. So we expect you to do this with the utmost, quality and luxury of that we expect from you, and that's basically essentially what we're doing.
So the expectation is that you'll protect my brand if I come in and say, okay, I'm going to take your brand and then I'm going to use that to promote a new venture in a different sector of the market. Let's say it's a condo, but you will say, okay, well, as long as you're not eating into my reputation, you're not going to damage that, you can have it. But it's fundamentally, I'm going to pay you for that relationship. Now, in terms of that relationship, does there have to be involvement from the brand to the person that's bought the rights, or is it just money changing hands?
It depends. I mean, generally, I would hope and expect to see, is that there are approval rights that go along with that. So, for example, you want to do something, with our name, or some marketing venture or anything like that, that usually has to be approved by the brand, because again, we've got brand standards. We expect it to be, that you're not going to damage the brand or diffuse the brand in any way. So there are approval rights, and most brands would maintain that.
This is the area where it's case by case scenarios, because again, there are brands who come in and just say, give me the money and you do what you're going to do, and I'm going to trust you to do it. And other times there are brands that I know who say, all right, you're going to pay, but I'm going to have a say in what you're doing as well. I'm going to be there in every meeting. And I've seen it with some brands in Miami with condos, where they're like, I'm going to be in every meeting. I'm going to see everything. I'm going to approve or disapprove everything that you do. I mean, I'm thinking of one brand, a hotel brand, the Four Seasons actually, who is so controlling. They don't even let a developer into the building unless they get authorization from Four Seasons. I mean, they are controlling every single thing.
I think from a brand perspective, that's really smart.
And they've got it right. I mean, again, you can go into any Four Seasons in the world. Actually, we were talking about this as well. The Mandarin is the same thing.
I love it.
A very, very controlling group. Other groups, maybe less so. I don't need to name them, but you can give me a call after this and I'll tell you who may be a little more flexible with those relationships. I think one of the things is that as we start talking about branding, the first thing to is identify, and this sometimes gets people confused, and it sounds obvious, but what is a brand? What is actually a brand? So when people say it's a branded this, it's a branded that, what is a brand in terms of the straight up definition of what is a brand? And why is that? I think maybe we can then go to why that's actually really useful to understand.
I mean, a brand is, it's a lot of things, but at its core, at its basic, is essentially the trademark, right? So I'm sitting here looking at your Apple computer and I see the Apple and I automatically know and associate that with Apple.
Yeah.
That's how you start a brand, right? And how you market that, your product itself, how you are selling that to consumers really then defines your brand. And then you determine what kind of value systems you have. Like when we're talking about, transparency in the supply chain, what do you really stand for?
Yeah. The stand for is really important. There's a well-known guy called Simon Sinek who did a book called The Why. And again, his whole thing is you can have two products that are the same. Why did Apple become so successful? And you can go in and there's a fascinating, it was a TEDx, one of his first TEDx talks. It's I think the second most viewed TEDx talk ever. And he talked about the fact that, yes, we do computers and they work and they're good and they do, but it's more than that. And when I started to look up brands, it got me thinking about the process. And it says it's defined as the essential identity of a product or service. It's how people perceive and connect with it. Key word being perceive. Yeah. A brand creates an emotional connection and makes it memorable and trusted. And it's the emotion, it's the words emotion and perceive that I like to play in this podcast with, because as you're nodding, the perception is a very hard thing to legally pin down,
Yep.
to be held accountable for. And it's different for everybody. It's absolutely different for everyone. And I think when we get into the further conversation, but I want to step back for a second, because forgetting condos for now, forgetting handbags and watches, why do we, and again, you touched on this before, why do we buy brands at all? What's in it? What's in it inside for us? Psychologically, what makes us reach for the label instead of a plain version? Is it identity? Is it status? Is it safety? Or is it really just an illusion?
It's a really good question. And I think, only speaking from my own experience as to like how I, have matured and how I shop or associate with brands, back in college, it was like, okay, everybody wanted like that like little Louis Vuitton bag or the Dior saddle bag, which had a massive comeback, because that was a status symbol and everybody else was carrying it. And this is before social media. So we're talking about like in magazines or people, around that we would see in New York or whatever. And I think that has changed for me. Because as I mature, my value system I've associated with, with different brands, or actually there are certain brands that I just refuse to buy because I don't like what they stand for. I'm not going to name names, but there are like.
And have you found that's evolved and changed because suddenly you realized like the brand was not what you thought it was, or maybe their mission changed a little bit, their identity changed? Or you just saw through the.
It was basically a stance that I felt that the designers took that I was not aligned with and will never be aligned with, and decided, okay, I'm going to boycott that brand, which was easy to do because I don't really have the money to buy it anyway, all the time. So I was like, that was an easy one. And I just think that, who the brand is a reflection of the quality, the exclusive, perceived exclusivity, the designers themselves. There's a lot of components that go into it.
You no longer felt that identity or belonging to the brand. It just, as you said, it just didn't resonate with you anymore. It stopped being who you were.
Right, exactly. And that was something that I, back in the day, I was like, okay, I would, consider buying one of those now, like off my list. And that's happened. I think we've seen some brands, really fall down. Balenciaga, I think, had a moment, where they had an ad campaign that went horribly sideways for them and got a lot of backlash. And so, seemed to recover. But I think that there was a moment where it was like, maybe this was so bad that we're not sure how we're going to survive this. And I'm sure lost, consumers that really love the brand at one time. And I think that because, especially now, where the consumer, there's so many options, right? And we're talking about also like you've got your, your general, luxury brands, but there's so many options that are like, what, either luxury themselves or smaller known brands or like luxury adjacent. And it's hard to really capture that consumer and keep that consumer. So falling down, I think, when telling the story or some sort of marketing, advertising can really, damage the brand.
Torpedo you. I've noticed that with brands fall, there's often one of the things that was often promoted, and this is something that we have a conversation. My background is economics. Everyone's aware that I'm a numbers guy and I talk about the economic markets and the systems.
I am not a numbers person.
Well, I don't think you, but
I can't get past fourth grade.
You're a psychology person, and math is just, in this way, it's just telling stories in a slightly different way. Uh-huh. But the story it tells me is when I look at brands, there's two areas that I start to kind of like poke away at that get interesting for me. And that's the whole idea of status. And well, status is one thing, but scarcity.
Yes.
Scarcity goes hand in hand with eliteness. And one of the things that brands we've seen before is that once they become highly accessible to everybody, and this is part of the issue that we have with Miami, when everything's branded, nothing's branded, and everyone's got something that's branded, therefore it's now worthless because it's just a level playing field. The whole idea of status is status. There's this niche top group, and if everyone has access to it because it's now affordable, the brand dies. Like, I mean, think of all the fashion brands, Calvin Klein and Polo Ralph Lauren, and there's a lot of brands that became high street brands.
Yeah. I mean, interesting. I think that's why we saw a quiet luxury like comeback, right? Which was, labeled, garish, logos everywhere. Yeah. We saw the Loro Pianos. Yeah. Brands like the Row, like Kate, that aren't branded with any sort of like logo on them, really take off. Now that's sort of my aesthetic. I do like that quiet luxury where it actually, again, taking out Loro Piana where it, it's high design, it's structured beautifully, it's elegant in its simplicity, and I don't need like a giant logo to basically say that.
Well, I think that's become across as like what's classified as gaudy if you go out there and everything you're wearing is branded and there's labels and stickers everywhere. It's like,
we could go outside and like hit seven
people with that. It's like everything is, and I think there's a point where that kind of gives an interesting reflection of society. There's absolutely, I think, a stereotype. There's a stereotype person, and I won't talk about nationalities and I won't talk about anything like that. But I think there's this idea in our head when we think of someone who, let's say, is not maybe emotionally mature. I'm going to use that term. They're not maybe emotionally evolved, spiritually evolved, emotionally mature. They are naturally drawn to buy the most garish, loud, branded thing that they can possibly find and do it in as many times as possible all at once. If some is good, more is better psychology, which I think obviously then we socially look at that and we laugh and we go, you look absurd. Now you look like
ridiculous,
a fool.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating is sometimes brands who are able to reinvent themselves with nothing more. And you talk about, you recognize the brand for the quality and the materials and how it's put together and that history to it. But I'm thinking of a brand, Moncler. Moncler was a very fascinating case study.
Love Moncler.
That brand, the story of Moncler and how that happened, how that came back from the dead?
No.
So the guy who owns Moncler bought the brand, I think, around 2007, 2008. And he paid some like stupid price for the brand. I think he paid like, I don't know, I want to say like 100 million for it or something.
Okay.
Which sounds like a lot of money, but it's worth like something like 5 billion.
Billions, yeah.
He bought this brand. He quadrupled the price. And he strategically went to different shops and stores to then promote the brand now in those stores. And then he got certain celebrities to wear and endorse the brand. And now, I mean, the influencer life and the whole social media thing, something we'll get into, which is another interesting area of branding. But anyway, he brought the brand back from the dead. I mean, he's made it something like 400 times more successful than it was when he bought it. All off the back of one big difference, which was quadruple the price.
Yeah.
Now, what does that say about us as a society when that happens? Is that just, everything comes down to status by price? And when we get into it, when we look at these things that are built in, let's say it's hand-stitched, but we all secretly know a lot of the stuff is made in the same way as much cheaper stuff is made.
Yeah.
There's not a guy like the guys who are making the bags at the Birkin bags. Right. They don't secretly all have like MIT masters or they're like secretly NASA scientists and they're all doing this on their, like, that's their side hustle.
I do like those ads though.
It's good. But you get to that point of like, how do we now start to navigate that into things that have a really strong impact in our lives? So why do you think, like getting into our psychology with branding, why do you think we see so many brands in Miami, like branded condos and other brands? What is it about Miami you think that's drawing these brands to come out and have, why we have so many of them compared to every other city on the planet? Maybe not Dubai. But.
Right. Honestly, because we love flash. We are, going back to the Miami Vice days of, pink and blue and money and perception of money. you'll see more rented Lamborghinis driving in Miami Beach than
I saw one yesterday. I was coming down off the causeway, and I swear to God, this is a true story. And I'm coming down off the causeway. Kirsten can attest me because she's in the car next to me, and when we're doing this, we're going to a meeting for a presentation for a branded condo. Funnily enough, the irony of it is not lost. And I look left, and the guy driving the cars with his girlfriend. He looks like he's all of like 16,
Yep.
or 50. He looks like he just got his license, and it's a gold Lamborghini Aventador. It's not chrome. He didn't go that far. I mean, God help him. God bless him. He held something back. But he had the top down, and it was about to rain like cats and dogs, like it is now. And I looked left, and I was like, this is so Miami.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I look at these brands now, and I'm thinking, how are they navigating their way? Because there are some brands that I like, just to be clear. But I'm thinking to myself, is it like the fault of the brands, or is it the fault of the people? Like, what do I deconstruct first of all?
I think it's the people. I think it's I love Miami. I love this city. I do. I love the people. I love you guys. I really, really do. But we are not serious as a city. We are not full of serious people. And I think that it's again, that flash and, the ability to go to Carbone and just say, I just bought a unit in like X branded build of Pagani, because that seems to be my favorite right now. I just bought a unit in Pagani building. And
It's a beautiful looking building, by the way.
I have.
It's pretty. It is pretty. I'll give them that. It's a pretty building. I don't dislike it, actually, weirdly enough. And I met the guy that runs the company, which was actually funny because he was like super involved in the process. But I get it. Our first natural knee-jerk reaction is, oh God, not another one.
Right. It is. I was like, what we're missing? Like, what are we missing right now? Like, what don't we have? We don't have Maserati.
But it's so easy to say.
We have a new Ferrari club. I think that's
that. Okay, we're on our way there. We're getting there. But I feel it's terrible to just say, okay, there's a bunch of crazy people doing stupid people do stupid things. But I'm like, what is it about our psychology as human beings? And I think once we start to understand our own personal psychology of how we weigh things and understand the influence of social media and those around us to make these decisions that we're making. One of the interesting podcasts I was listening to was with a guy, Terry Wu, and he did a TEDx talk, and he talked about his getting into the psychology of the business. He did this, it was about neuromarketing, and it's obviously neuro being brain and marketing being marketing. And I'm thinking, let's look at the brain as it pertains to how we're influenced by marketing, and therefore how brands are able to grab hold of us in this way. And what made that 16-year-old kid want to rent a bright gold Lamborghini coming onto the beach, and what makes people want to buy these buildings? If it makes them happy, God bless them.
right.
But does it make them really happy? And will it make them happy in the long run? Like, what? I'm not standing on a setbox here telling people how you should live your life, but I'm just wondering if we're asking sometimes the right questions when we're in the process, because I hope that we can then get into ask the right questions so people can make those better decisions to get what they really, really want.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, when you're buying a brand, the questions are, one, I think, quality, right? That goes for anything. That goes for car. That goes for condo. That goes for apparel. That goes for accessories. Is it, to you, does it have the quality? Is it durable? Is it going to last? Does it have the finishes? Like, is it well made?
Yeah.
I mean, that's really that's the question. The second question is, does it align with my values?
Yeah.
Does this, am I proud to stand behind this company when I say that I own a unit in their building, or did somebody say something really stupid and offensive and I'm embarrassed by it and I no longer, stand by it? So, I think some digging, because we're not talking about small purchases from any of these things.
These are big decisions.
Right, on any level. So it's, some history into that. I mean, people can see it as like for a unit if it's a good deal or whatever. I get that. But when we're talking about brand psychology, it's and it's that. And then I think what you said earlier was like, how does it make me feel overall? Do I feel good about it? Do I feel good about spending all of this money on something And does it make me happy, or is this just sort of impulsive and then I'm going to regret it?
Well, that comes back to the perception versus reality. If your perception matches your reality when the reality happens, then you're happy. You're like, I imagined that I would live a certain lifestyle, and I get into the building and I am living this lifestyle. I'm super happy. Guess what? Great. I got what I wanted. I think how we perceive quality, but then there are also times that we as consumers, and I think as a society, we're being kind of, I want to say brainwashed, that's not a good word, but we're being
brainwashed. My Instagram hates me. Hates me.
You, me, and everybody else. There's a reason why I don't let my kids have Instagram, because everyone's getting conditioned. Everyone's getting highly, highly conditioned to dopamine responses and to a certain way of thinking. There was an interesting podcast that he said, you really should listen to this. And it's titled, it's Philosophize This: Achievement, Society, and the Rise of Narcissism, Depression, and Anxiety.
Fantastic.
It was phenomenal. And what was amazing about it was that we're living in this like self-constructed sense of freedom. We're all told you can be anything you want to be. You can be where you want to be. You can achieve anything you want to. You can drive the car you drive, have the body that you want, be the healthiest version of yourself, be the best parent you could possibly be. Just everything's going to be just fantastic. You just need to try harder, right? That's the poster child for like social media.
Just work hard.
Just be better. All you got to do is be better. Ironically, we're doing a podcast called Better Decisions. So, the process is that to quantify those better decisions, are they really yours, or are they being implemented through someone else to you? Society is now telling you, feel a certain way, want a certain thing. And then when you get it, you get this sudden level of like, I'm really disappointed. That
wasn't as advertised.
That meal didn't taste as good as it looked on the recipe, or that dress didn't look as good on me as I thought it would because it was being modeled on someone else. Or that car. Well, you didn't work out hard enough. Yeah. Sorry, you should have dieted harder. You should have eaten more protein. You should have had less carbs. Yeah. You would have been fine. Yeah. Or, we're getting into this is the lifestyle for you. If you buy into this, immediate gratification is just around the corner. And I think part of the process is that we're given this, like, don't take the journey, just take the destination. So when I get into that whole podcast, one of the things was this sense of, this illusion of freedom. It goes back to a whole matrix conversation, which is a whole other deep topic. But the ability of brands to manipulate us into a way of thinking is a little bit scary. And their ability to do it now is at a whole other level.
Yep.
Like just go and watch as I told you, that movie to watch, Mountain Head. It's a little bit scary because it's all about, how with AI you can manipulate videos, you can manipulate pictures. And getting into branding, I mean, brands are very good now at giving this visual, which tricks our little monkey mind brains into thinking that's real.
Yep.
That's really how people are.
And I really think that that's where we're headed, which I've had this conversation, particularly as it pertains to AI, where it's going to, because right now I'm like, okay, it can't substitute for judgment. It can't, substitute. It doesn't understand, risk tolerance of your clients. It doesn't. But what it does do is that it synthesizes information incredibly well and comes at you with a very authoritative, like, this is the answer. Like, we've seen so many, I don't mean to take this off on a different tangent, but like, we've seen so many cases of lawyers, like, filing cases of like hallucinated case law. And, what I'm afraid of is that we're just going to take it as reality, right? So all of this branding, all of this marketing, nobody's going to challenge it because that is the answer.
Yeah.
And it's not the answer at some point. So at some point, does this become our new reality?
It's the authoritative role, which is the wild juxtaposition, the authoritative role being taken or I guess pushed onto us, while at the same time we're told we have complete freedom of choice.
Right.
Which is the complete opposite. Now that it's
going back to
then we're philosophizing over it and to the fucker of it. Yeah. And it's when I look at branding now, and again giving people some direction of how we make better decisions coming out of this. Part of the understanding of branding is knowing what you're being pitched by the brand. What does the brand stand for? And there has to be some level of ethics behind the brand, because if you don't, if it's just money, and again, one of the conversations we were getting into before, because I know we bounced around a lot on this conversation, is how private equity is controlling large amount. You just like that, or God. All right, so what's your opinion on this whole? Private equity as the group controlling brands, controlling decisions going on. Why is that a problem?
Because it's all about money. It's all about profit. It's all about, getting the exit. And you lose the brand heritage. Like, you lose sometimes, what made that brand special.
Yeah,
we've seen a lot of, either when they buy it, the designers are, sold their name and they're no longer involved. And you see it, the decline is swift.
Yeah.
And readily apparent. I'm not a fan. It makes me sad every time I see it. Great for the people that make a lot of money, but I think that that in that moment it very much changes. It's been very, very rare where I've seen it be able to really capture and hold on to what made the brand special at the time.
When it gets to heritage is a really interesting word, and I've got a story on heritage that I want to share with you. But with heritage, why, in your opinion, is heritage so valued with consumers and with brands? Why is it so expunged and so communicated out there that we have heritage, we have history, we have, what is the real value in your thoughts of why that carries weight?
That's a really good question. I think it carries weight because, so using Burberry, for example, because I think that that's a great example of a heritage brand that sort of lost its way and is now trying to find its way back. You see it connotes, English high society and, equestrian, and, it's just, that is like at its core who it is. And it just makes really great trench coats. And I think when you start to get away from that and the core of who they really are is sometimes, when you fall down and you lose your core base of consumers. So I think, it's heritage that people align with. Again, it's that storytelling, it's that exclusivity, it's the alignment of values. And then when you start to stray away from that heritage piece of it is when it can go kind of sideways on you. But I think that, I don't know that answered your question. I don't know why necessarily.
Well, I have some theories on this, and I've thought about this. And you mentioned a British brand, and I think about the history of where I come from and the history of brands that I appreciate over the years. And one thing I realize is that usually in the storyline, and again, it comes back to good marketing is good storytelling. That's all we do. It's just good storytelling.
That's exactly it.
And the story, the history story is always a story of challenge. It's always a story of obstacles. It's always a story of friction. But it's someone who overcomes obstacles because at their core, they are unwavering in their belief of uncertainty of what they're doing is right. It's that strong ethical foundation that allows you to, even in the face of extreme obstacles and difficulties, to say, this might be really difficult. This is really tough, but I'm going to keep doing this because it's what I believe in to my core. And when we look at any journey that anyone goes on, anyone who achieves anything of great notoriety will say, it's not the getting at the end that was of value. It's the journey that I went on to get it. When I look back, I thought it was the actual, the thing I wanted at the end, that immediate, and we have now this problem with society, immediate gratification.
Yes.
But it's the process that you go through to get there that actually has the true value. And when you have that, and you see a company that says, okay, I've been through hardship, I've been through difficulty, I experienced friction, I value that, I did not change my order of beliefs at one moment. You look back on that as a human being and saying, I want that to be me too. I want to be the kind of person that doesn't take the easy road. I want to take the hard road too. That stands for who I am. Because I think every human being wants to feel like their journey matters. So if you're associated with another journey that matters, it's a reflection of what you want to be and who you want to be.
I think that's right. I think that also comes with a lot of maturity. though. That comes with a lot of self-reflection. That comes with that age and actually going through those hardships. Because I remember, just being a young kid, was just like, okay, I just want the thing.
Yeah.
Like,
we all do.
I just want the thing.
We all do. But that's a sign of immaturity, and I think that's a sign of when people go for weak brands. It's just it's like, I just want the flash. I just want to show off.
Well, I think it's also a part of, like, again, when you're young and I have 4 daughters, and so it's like, I see them and they all dress the same. Like they all, you know what I mean? Like my 11-year-olds, they all wear the same thing. They're like in jean skirts and like a black tank top, and all their friends look the same. And, that's how it was when you were, you wanted to belong, because if you were different, then you didn't feel it was a part of it. And I get that whole psychology of it. So it was like that back then. It was like, you want the thing. As you mature, I think it's one, you appreciate, the journey of getting there, the hard work, the actual, the achievement of like, okay, like I can buy this thing because I've worked so hard at doing it. And, then it's just like, well, I don't want it because everybody else, has it. Like you just see that all the time. You're like, everything's like a hero bag or a hero this or whatever. Yeah. And you're like, I want something different. I want something unique. And
maybe that's why we don't like the private equity big groups, because they just they just buy it. It's like, I want it, I bought it.
I know.
And it's just, and that's the thing. It's like, well, just go out, cash is king. There's no friction there. And therefore, the process of going through, there's no appreciation for the friction.
And I think you see that. I think that's exactly, I think that you just nailed it, which is like, that's why you see it. There's no appreciation for it. You appreciate it as a thing, but you really don't know what to do with the thing. And you're like, it's a pretty thing, but money means everything, so we're going to cut on all the things that made it pretty.
It's valuable for its sake rather than actually what it is and what it does. And which actually brings me round to when I'm actually weighing up condos now, and we're looking at these condo buildings, I will not look at the name on the side of the building. It doesn't, to me, it's not the first thing that I must look at. It's probably the last thing I'm going to look at, if I look at that at all. What I think is that when I look now at the Miami skyline and I look at all these buildings, the first thing I think about, and going back to the heritage situation, I'm going to use the car brand Porsche as an example. I'm going to talk about the car. I'm not going to talk about the building or about the car. Yeah. Porsche do a vehicle called the 911 Turbo S. It's probably considered the finest sports car that money can buy. Why? Why is it considered like the best sports car you can buy? And I think I thought about this long and hard, and I had this model, which is it's called a heritage model. It's called a Sport Classic Heritage model. And I thought, and this car has gone up double in value.
Okay.
And I thought to myself, why is this so valuable? What does it stand for? Because it's still the same car that's half the price, but there's some different things to it. It's got different wheels. It's got a different interior. There's some badges on it. There's, a few other things but ultimately it's very much the same. It goes still, 0 to 60 in stupid time.
right.
Goes forwards, backwards, and sometimes sideways. But the process of the brand for that particular model reflected on the history of the company. And the ergonomics of the vehicle is amazing. The experience, the actual visceral feeling that I get, what I bought. I wanted to buy the feeling, because you don't buy a car because I need to take 2 kids to school in 2.5 seconds. Right. I bought it because I wanted it, but I've had it for a few years, and I'm not going to sell it because it keeps going up in value. It's a phenomenal car to drive. The finish is superb. The materials are amazing. It reflects who I feel I want to be around it. It makes me feel good.
There you go.
And there's a level of quality and craftsmanship in it as well, which is undeniable. And I feel like when I look at buildings now, I look at them in much the same way. The first thing I look at is the floor plan, the ergonomics of the flow of the unit. Because if I walked into a unit and I was met by a wall, like, the whole feng shui?
Yes.
Like, just don't walk into a room and there's a wall in front of you. Like, the view is, you walk into a house, you look through the house, you look through to the pool. You walk into a condo, you walk in the living room, you look out to the water. Those ergonomics give you a feeling, because they're embracing nature around you, and they're just giving you all the visual stimulation that you want.
Yep.
But the form of function's there. It's like beautifully designed, like a beautifully designed unit. The floor plan is the most important thing. The second thing I look at is the quality of the materials. Like, Does it have nice slabs on the floor? Is it awful shiny porcelain? It's cheap. Does it have nice light fixtures? Does it have nice doors that when I close, it's soundproof and it doesn't feel like the whole building shaking or it's paper? You know, do I feel like the marble's thick and the counters of a nice quality and it's got depth and it's got a dimension to it that feels warm and substantial? When you have those things from a developer in a building, forget the name on the side of the building, that's a big tick. So floor plan tick, quality tick, and then I think about, you know, again, the exclusivity,
right?
Like how many units actually exist like this? Could I actually replicate this building? Like if you take Mandarin, for example, it's on the tip of Brickell Quay. You can't replicate that location. You just can't. You'll never be able to do it. You might be able to get something else somewhere else, looking into some other buildings or a different view, but not like that. So I think that true rareness, because I think brands are very good at controlling quantity. They're very good at controlling. I mean,
yes,
Rolex diamonds.
Yes.
Birkin bags.
Yeah.
I mean, stockpile that and see the prices rise. When we get into all of those variables, that's when I start to kind of look at what
value
truly matters. So I kind of wonder how we then navigate brands in the future. Where do you see brands going? Like, what do you think the future of branding looks like?
Oh, I think it's going to be world domination, and in all, you're already seeing it now, right? So going into hospitality, Ralph Lauren Cafe. I think Burberry did, a couple pop-ups in the city in New York. They're going to go into hospitality, restaurants, and things like that. Yachts, anything, spirits. You're going to see for sure luxury branded alcohol.
Really?
Oh yeah.
So branding alcohol, branded buildings, branded what?
We're talking about lifestyle. It's not just.
Why do you think we feel? Why are we moving in that direction? What is it you think that makes people feel like the world wants this and needs this?
That belonging to a community, that society, that that exclusivity. I don't think it's going to be. You're not going to be able to get the alcohol like at the liquor store, but at exclusive like giveaways or only in the store. This is not going to be a mass marketing effort, but again, it's going to stay true to the brand, the heritage, what it is, and then they're going to make it exclusive. We're seeing it with yachts and boats and all of that stuff. So I think Fenty Casa, like home, it's just going to be ubiquitous
because they've got more
markets.
They've got more money, so they can market more.
Sure.
And then at the same time, there's more channels to market and communicate, social media, and then there's human need for tribes that we experienced this during COVID. Everyone felt socially isolated. Everyone felt like we were away and we didn't have people around us, and we kind of lost our village.
Yep. Clubs, social clubs too.
Yeah.
I think are going to be. I think again, I'm pretty sure Rarity has.
We're seeing a lot more clubs. Actually, that's an interesting thing. When we get into the condo life, we're seeing a lot more clubs being now introduced into the Miami market, where people feel like they want to come together because there's so much screen time. People are on the screen so much. They're feeling more and more isolated. Depression, anxiety, it's going up. And I think people feel like they need a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
They want to be around people like them.
Yep. So we can talk about our cars and on our stuff. And,
boats and our branded vodkas.
Yeah.
So, so going into the future, looking at brands and the accountability of brands, have brands ever really being held accountable, or is it all just it's down to you to hold them accountable to your perception?
Legally or just
I'm curious to know legally speaking. Legally speaking and socially speaking, I'd like to hear on both sides.
Sure. I think legally, yes, we're seeing that with again the raids that happened in Italy, the exploitation of labor. Socially, I think it's TBD, and I think consumers are fickle, and but I think some like myself have held true, and at least held them accountable in my own heart.
Yeah.
But I can't really think of one that's been quote unquote canceled to the extent that they've been held socially accountable.
Yeah, I think they're very good. What I notice is that brands are pretty good at insulating themselves from what I would call the fallout,
That and the news cycle goes so quickly. So if something happens,
it could be terrible today and then someone will forget about it. And again, I also feel like with branding, if a brand decides to branch out in a different direction against from their core principles and they dabble, let's say they dabble in a new industry, a new area. And again, if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world, because the people who buy the core brand product, whether it's a fashion item or whether it's a car, aren't going to suddenly stop buying that vehicle because an unassociated product didn't do so well.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I think what we're seeing right now in this moment is there's been a lot of the brand Aloe.
Yes.
Okay, so love Aloe, workout brand. Accessible. I would say accessible luxury, not like over the top, like crazy expensive, but again, achievable. So they just came out with a $3,000 leather bag. And everyone's like, why?
What? How?
Why? Yeah, how? I mean,
and they're branching out. They're doing a gym, actually. It's funny that they're opening. The third gym they're opening is actually going to be on Miami Beach.
Yeah, I've seen the one in Los Angeles. It's not. I mean, I think it's great, like that, and then it'll do well. For sure, will do well here. I mean, my whole workout wardrobe is mostly Aloe. And their whole aesthetic is great. But now they're coming out with a $3,000 bag. Like, if I had $3,000 to burn, I'm not going to buy it on like an Aloe bag. And it's got like the Aloe mark on the...
You have to question why you should start going down that rabbit hole of just buying things just because it has a brand associated with another thing that they produce. Like now a $3,000 bag from Aloe, you're going to be like, well, if it's the same price as something else that from a company who actually makes bags and that's all they do, maybe I would choose that instead.
Right. It's just wild to me that this was like, we're going to go do that now.
But brands have always, over time, interestingly enough, have always had a good shot of changing the narrative for who they are. I mean, I was listening to about Coca-Cola. Mm-hmm. So Coca-Cola is an interesting thing. In the past, there's actually, I flashed this up, there was a thing that said, drink Coke, feel better. And it showed a picture of a doctor giving Coke to a child, right? Now, we look at this now in the year 2025 and go, that's insane.
That was probably back when they actually
you're like,
in it too.
I've just given a kid diabetes. Here, have this. But you look at that and you go, at the time they did it. And then I looked at the branding and it said, drink Coke, feel better. Now, did they break any laws? They sold, you might feel better when you drink this. The kid might be like, I had a crappy day at school. I just drank that Coke. I got a massive sugar rush. I feel way better for 30 seconds. And maybe that should be in brackets below. But at what point are they breaking laws? And then at what point is it our duty to do our due diligence to understand the difference between branding and what the brand actually is, marketing and the brand?
Yeah, it depends on the claims that are actually being made, right? So if Coca-Cola was like, drink Coke, it will, reduce, heart disease.
Yeah.
You got to have the science, to back that up. So it depends on the claims that are actually being made, and those sort of marketing departments are genius at navigating around those.
They will navigate it really well, and I think part of the process of being able to navigate those waters is having someone who isn't emotionally attached to the product. That's why people hire me, because they're like, look, I feel emotional about this. I love this product. This looks amazing. I went in and I looked at the renderings. I looked at this video. The video was amazing. There was we joked about this off camera before we started rolling. Every time you'll go in and see a building, there's like a ridiculously hot couple. They're having the best day they've ever had of anyone in the world ever. It's like an Instagram day, right? Secretly, like it didn't go like that. But they're turning up to the building and they're having a mojito, and then they're out by the pool and they look amazing. Then they're doing yoga.
Never works.
Then they're having a steak. Then they, exactly. And that's just that. And that's the vision that they sell. But we have to be, aware that is a story that they're telling us, and they're not saying that can be your life, but they're trying to make you feel something for the brand, for the image, for the visual of what you're getting into. And so many times over the years, people have called me and said, I bought into this building and it's not what I thought it would be. And I'm like, well, what did you think it was going to be? Well, I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like really high quality and really high class, and I thought it was going to be like really cool people around. And I got there, and I just didn't feel that I got what I thought I was going to get. And I'm like, well, maybe you felt wrong. Maybe you need someone to pull you back who doesn't have emotion, doesn't have feeling in the process. Don't say that feeling's bad. I think all our decisions are emotional. Actually, one of the facts of life is that there is an argument that no decision that we can ever make is without some level of emotion.
Sure.
It's
just
just
we bring with all of our
have to
everything.
But there are moments when you need to be more calculated in the decisions you made and use someone who isn't emotional to give you some of the rationality and the sensibility before you just rush in there and go, I just want an aloe bag for $3,000 because I'm going to feel amazing when I have it and I'm going to look so great when I walk into that gym and all girls are like, it's an aloe bag.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, two things on that. One, I think is bringing a buddy or doing a gut check with a friend on, before making those kinds of is somebody who's unemotional. I think is brilliant. The other thing is for making better decisions is really reading between the lines of what they're selling you, and really pay attention to what the marketing is. So, for example, when beauty products, which is inundated in my feed, apparently, according to Instagram, I need a facelift and 67,000 grams of protein. So, but what cosmetic companies in particular will say, it reduces the appearance of wrinkles. It doesn't actually reduce wrinkles. The product reduces the appearance of wrinkles.
So, owning a condo appears that it will reduce the appearance of being miserable, but it won't actually reduce misery.
Exactly. Misery's on you. You got to own that, right? But we'll do our best to try to help you feel good. And it's those kinds of marketing tactics that I think that you really need to be aware of is what are they actually saying? What are they actually selling?
Yeah.
When it comes to, consumer products, what claims are they making? Does it actually do this? Or is this sort of just marketing puffery?
Yeah. I mean, look,
brand fuckery. Tying it back.
There are subtle and not so subtle signs that guide us to make better decisions. And I think part of the skill is having someone, a soundboard to go off to say, okay, am I just running purely off subconscious here? Or can somebody with a conscious mind can I step up here and pull me back from the brink of lunacy to help me make a better decision in this? I think at the end of the day, having this kind of dialogue is really, really useful. I want to actually thank you for doing this podcast with me. I got a chance to research and I learned a lot on this. I got to tell you, Danielle, I really took a good look inside my own psychology, my own consumer behaviors, and I think we all need to do this more often. To look at what makes people do what they do, what makes me do what I do, and how can I help people make better decisions in their process? Because I think at the end of the day, if we get what we think we're going to get, we're all going to be a lot happier.
Yep.
Danielle, thank you so much.
No, thank you. This was really fun.
Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed this. Any questions, please DM us below. This podcast will actually go along with an article where we'll detail into it. We'll cite some of those great podcasts that I found and listen to, some of those articles that were interesting that talk about, the brand arbitrage and when things go slightly haywire. We aim to bring you new podcasts every week. We're working very hard to bring great guests in like Danielle who will really give you good optics onto the world that we live in. And if you'd like more information on the new condo construction market, on the good, the bad, and the ugly, please give me a call. Thank you for watching. See you next time for another David Siddons Group Better Decisions podcast.
Thanks, David.